and gentlemen. For the very first time, we're hearing Richie Incognito's side of the story. He spoke with Jay Glazer yesterday.
You can ask anybody in the Miami Dolphins locker room who had John Martin's back the absolute most, and they'll undoubtedly tell you me. John never showed signs that football was getting to him, the locker room was getting to him. I'm embarrassed by my actions. But what I want people to know is the way Jonathan and the rest of the offensive line and how our teammates, how we communicate, it's vulgar. It's not right. When the words are put in the context, I understand why a lot of eyebrows get raised, but people don't know how John and I communicate to one another. I'm not a racist. And to judge me by that one word is wrong. In no way, shape, or form is it ever acceptable for me to use that word, even if it's friend to friend on a voicemail. This isn't an issue about bullying. This is an issue of mine and John's relationship where I've taken stuff too far and I didn't know it was hurting him. I just spoke with him through text message and he texted me and said, I don't blame you guys. I blame some stuff in the locker room. I blame the culture. I blame what was going on around me.
Richie Incognito speaking out about the Jonathan Martin controversy. Stephen A., your first time hearing his entire side of the story. Change your perspective?
To some degree, yes, it did. I thought Jay Glazer did a fantastic job doing that. Let me give him credit for that. I appreciated the candor coming out of the mouth of Richie Incognito because, if nothing else, I do believe that his words were very authentic and genuine. I thought he was straightforward in what he had to say, and he didn't try to gloss over anything. I'm not going to completely absolve him, but I want to remind everybody that watches this show that I'm fully aware of that locker room culture. There have been times in my life, not in the locker room, but outside the locker room, I've been a part of a culture like that, so I understand where he's coming from. I appreciate him saying it was inexcusable because it is, and it's something that we all have to learn from and move forward. But let me also say this. While not completely absolving him, I've been on the record by saying the word and the racial epithet and all the attention that's been brought to bear in regards to this situation with Jonathan Martin, that has never been my focus. My focus was a bigger problem. And the bigger problem that I have is not with Richie Incognito. It is with those black players inside those locker rooms that have contributed to this culture, that made him feel free and easy with it, but more importantly, clearly made a concerted effort to contribute to denigrating an individual in Jonathan Martin that they felt were different than themselves. And that's what I have the problem with. Jonathan Martin's parents graduated from Harvard. He graduated from Stanford. His sister is in medical school. And for some reason, according to the reporters out there, you have black players inside that locker room that, instead of looking at him and admiring the background, they resent it. To the point where if you're not associated with the streets, or you're not associated with thuggery, or you're not associated with something like that, it is actually a badge of dishonor in their eyes towards a Jonathan Martin. So while everybody in the country wants to focus on the use of the N-word, et cetera, okay, it's wrong. We accept that. He acknowledged that. So be it. And we're going to, and obviously we're going to pay attention to that moving forward. All of us as a society. But the bigger problem, I can assure you, more bigger than anybody could imagine, is when you have professional athletes of African American descent trying to define the authenticity of a black man just because he is educated. But then at their discretion, they want to pick and choose, want to look at white America and bring up race. Well, excuse me, if you're going to do that, aren't you a bigger part of the problem than the people that you're accusing of being racist? Because if you could sit there and look at somebody who shares your pigmentation, your hue, your ethnicity, etc., and decide because he is educated and comes from a different background than you, that as a result of that, he's not black, how could you possibly look at anybody in white America and fault them for any kind of image or whatever they may have when you directly have contributed to it? That is the part that is inexcusable. That is a far, and I'm not dismissing, trying to minimize the issue of the use of the N-word, etc., etc. I am telling you, as a black man, that is far more significant when black people from our own community, are suddenly believing that they have the license to define somebody's blackness.
And it's not sudden, it happens often.
That is a far bigger problem in our society. And I'm almost glad this has happened, Skip, because that is going to now get more attention than anything than this issue has ever had before. And I can promise you that, because I'm going to make it a point to make sure we are aware of it, because that is a big problem we need to resolve within our own community.
I appreciate that stance. We've talked about that over the last couple of weeks. Back to Incognito's first statements that he made to Jay Glazer. Extremely convincing. We talked last week, I did, about how we know that Richie Incognito still has a very checkered past. I believe, from all I've read and heard, very flawed individual. But I told you last week, he's also very bright. He's a shrewd operator. And he backed Jonathan Martin into a public corner yesterday.
Yes, he
even
did.
going so far as to say, Jay, you can look at my phone after we finish. And then Jay came back on Fox and said there were almost 1,500
1,142.
texts. Okay.
1,100.
Okay, 1,142 texts.
Yep.
That's advantage incognito, including some texts after the fact, after the controversy hit, in which, according to Richie, right,
Yes.
Jonathan Martin is texting him like, man, I don't know what's up, what's going on?
To piggyback off your point, would you like me to read the quote?
Sure.
The quote from Jonathan Martin in the aftermath of this entire fiasco. There's a text, I'm sorry. What's up, man? The world's going crazy. Laugh out loud. I'm good, though. Congrats on the win. Yeah, I'm good, man. It's insane, bro, but just know I don't blame you guys at all. It's just the culture around football and the locker room got to me a little bit. As far as I'm concerned, Jonathan Martin just absolved Richie Incognito.
He did.
Which is why I want to hear from Jonathan Martin.
Yes.
I realize he's gone through emotional turmoil. There was the report that he had checked into some sort of treatment center for a while.
Yep, in Florida.
If he is capable of gathering his emotions and speaking publicly right now, he needs to speak right now. He needs to express his side of the case here, because he is looking worse and worse by the moment. He looked strong in his stance to begin with, and we have heard from Cornwell, his lawyer, obviously speaking for him. Not good enough. I think the public would like to hear from Jonathan Martin, wouldn't you?
Well, it goes beyond like. It's almost mandatory
now
now.
it
You
is.
know why it's mandatory? According to Richie Incognito, when he had texted Jonathan Martin sort of absolved himself from the situation, saying, this is not coming from me. Well, if there's 1,142 text messages between the two of you, including this latest one that I just read, where did they get it from if it wasn't from you? It's your phone. Are you sharing it with people? I mean, give me a break.
Wait, but Stephen A., moving forward,
It's
what
his.
can he say?
Well, again,
Jonathan Martin say in regards to this case?
I don't know what specifically he can say, Kerry and Skip. What I can tell you is that he has an obligation to say something, because Richie Incognito has been raked through the coals. And you're talking about the culture of the NFL that has been brought into serious question because of all of this, to the point where the NFL is hiring independent investigators. The investigators are scheduled to go out to California to speak to Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin, and ultimately there's going to be the heavy hand of the NFL coming down upon NFL teams' locker rooms to address their culture, all because of this. So you don't get to be Jonathan Martin exposing an entire league to all of this and then don't say nothing. I'm not saying he's wrong, and I can tell you right now, he's got the right man in this corner, and David Cornwell. Let me be very, very clear about that. But what you can't do is lay in the cut being all silent. Not after he has everything to do with the fact that this has become public. And if Richie Incognito, with the heat that he's been under, can sit with Jay Glazer in front of a national television audience, certainly the alleged victim, Jonathan Martin, can sit before everybody and explain his side too. You can't be quiet on this.
Explanation is mandatory at this point. Thank you, gentlemen, for weighing in. We will have more First Take after the break.